The world tilted on its axis with a single, unspoken sentence. I was glaring at Asher, my lifelong rival, my temper flaring over some stupid comment he'd made, when a voice echoed in my head, clear as a bell but utterly alien. God, he's so cute even when he's mad. I just want to kiss him senseless. I froze, my own angry retort dying on my lips. The voice was smooth, familiar, and undeniably his, yet his mouth hadn't moved an inch. My gaze dropped, bewildered, and the voice came again, a low, husky murmur that vibrated through my skull. And damn that ass. When he bent over earlier. I really want to touch it. My heart hammered against my ribs, a frantic drumbeat of pure, unadulterated shock. This had to be a dream, or I was finally going insane. My world had been thrown into a chaotic, dizzying spin, and Asher Vance was the smug, handsome axis around which it was now uncontrollably turning. The silence in our dorm room was a thin veneer stretched over years of bitter rivalry, but the voice in my head was a cannon blast tearing right through it. I forced my eyes away from him, trying to focus on the flickering computer screen in front of me, but the phantom words kept replaying on a loop. God, he's so cute even when he's mad. I just want to kiss him senseless. The thought was so clear, so undeniably Asher's, yet his lips were sealed in a frustratingly neutral line. I squeezed my eyes shut, trying to reboot my brain. This had to be stress. Midterms, sharing a room with my sworn enemy, a lack of sleep, it was the only logical explanation. But as I shifted in my chair, his internal monologue started up again, a low, predatory hum that made the hair on my arms stand up. And damn that ass. I really want to touch it. My breath hitched. This was no auditory hallucination. This was a high-definition, surround sound invasion of my privacy. What the hell is wrong with you, Asher? The words burst out of me, sharp and accusatory. I spun my chair around to face him, my hands clenched into fists on my lap. Keep your disgusting thoughts to yourself. Asher, who had been lazily scrolling through his phone, looked up with an expression of perfect, infuriating innocence. He raised a single, dark eyebrow. What are you talking about, Kai? I haven't said a word. His voice was calm, steady, and completely devoid of the lustful commentary that was currently screaming through my consciousness. You've been getting better at baseless accusations, I'll give you that. Our other roommate, Leo, peered over the top of his textbook from the opposite bunk, a look of genuine confusion on his face. Kai? He's right. Asher didn't say anything. Are you feeling okay? The combined weight of their denial sent a tremor of doubt through me. Was I actually losing my mind? Desperate for proof, I locked my gaze onto Asher's mouth, scrutinizing his lips as if the answer were written there. They were well-defined, the lower ones slightly fuller than the top, and as I stared, the voice returned with startling clarity. Why is he staring at my mouth like that? Does he want a kiss? Maybe I should have used some mints. My heart did a frantic somersault. The voice was there, a phantom whisper in my mind, while his lips remained perfectly still. It wasn't a hallucination. It was real. Holy shit, I could actually hear his thoughts. As this impossible truth settled over me, I turned back to my computer, my entire body rigid with shock. My rivalry with Asher was the central, defining conflict of my life. From kindergarten crayon drawing contests to our neck-and-neck university entrance scores, we were perpetual nemeses. Choosing the same university was a cruel twist of fate. Ending up in the same major felt like a targeted attack. But being assigned to the same dorm room, with our beds placed side by side in a space the size of a walk-in closet, was proof that the universe had a sick sense of humor. All this time, I thought the animosity was mutual. Now, I was learning it was all a lie. And beneath the lifetime of annoyance, a traitorous, unfamiliar warmth began to spread through my chest. The idea that his taunts and glares were just a front for that was both infuriating and strangely exhilarating. The inner commentary didn't stop. As I tried to focus on my assignment, Asher's thoughts drifted over me like a tangible presence. Kai looks so focused on that screen. His back is so straight. I wonder what it would feel like to wrap my arms around him from behind, like those couples in the dramas. A wave of heat washed over me, starting from my neck and creeping up to my ears. I could feel my face flushing a deep, mortifying red. Just then, Leo poked me in the cheek. Kai, your face is beet red. Are you coming down with a fever? I flinched, swatting his hand away with a mumbled excuse about watching a scary scene in a movie. Leo just gave me a thumbs up, clearly not buying it. But the real damage was done. From across the room, Asher's mind flared with a sharp spark of jealousy. Leo touched his cheek. I want to pinch it too. He had the softest, chubbiest cheeks as a kid, like a little steamed bun. I always wanted to take a bite. That was it. That was the absolute limit. With a loud snap, I slammed my laptop shut, the sound echoing in the suddenly quiet room. I'm going out to get dinner, I announced to no one in particular, grabbing my phone and wallet. Text me if you want anything. I didn't wait for a reply, practically fleeing the room as if the devil himself, a very handsome, secretly perverted devil, were hot on my heels. The cool evening air did little to quell the inferno raging under my skin. I bought a bottle of ice-cold water from the campus convenience store and chugged half of it in one go, the chill doing a poor job of extinguishing the fire Asher's thoughts had ignited within me. By the time I reached the bustling university canteen, I had almost managed to convince myself that I could handle this bizarre new reality. But my fragile peace shattered the moment I felt a familiar presence behind me. I turned, and there he was, Asher, trailing me with that infuriatingly casual stride, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. Why are you following me? I snapped, my voice harsher than I intended. He met my glare with a lazy, challenging smirk that I knew all too well. Is your name on the deed to this canteen, Kai? Last I checked, it was a public space. I'm just getting dinner. His words were a perfect counterattack, but his mind betrayed him instantly, a torrent of anxious thoughts flooding my brain. He's so mad. His eyes are practically shooting sparks. But he looks so good like this. I can't let him eat alone. What if someone else hits on him? The thought was so possessive, so utterly different from the arrogant facade he presented, that it left me speechless. I couldn't fight him when I had a direct line to his insecurities. Defeated, I just sighed. Whatever. Just stay away from me. We ended up sitting at the same table anyway, a wide, empty space separating us like a no-man's land. The silence was thick with unspoken tension, punctuated only by the clatter of cutlery and the low hum of the canteen. I tried to focus on my food, but his thoughts were a constant, distracting murmur. He's angry, but he's still beautiful. I wonder what he'd look like in my bed, all flushed in. A loud, involuntary cough escaped me, interrupting his mental smut. I shot him a warning glare, which only seemed to amuse him. Just as I was about to retreat into my own thoughts, a slender, bookish-looking guy approached our table, his cheeks flushed with a nervous blush. Hi, he stammered, his eyes fixed on Asher. Sorry to bother you, but could I get your contact info? He held out his phone, a QR code glowing on the screen. Ordinarily, I would have found this hilarious. I would have leaned back and teased Asher mercilessly about his fan club. But now, knowing what I knew, a strange, ugly feeling coiled in my gut. It felt like watching someone try to steal something that belonged to me. The thought was absurd, but the possessiveness was real and sharp. Before Asher could even open his mouth, his internal monologue went into overdrive. Shit. What do I do? If I add him, Kai will misunderstand for sure. He'll think I'm a player. But if I turn him down in front of all these people, the guy will be so embarrassed. He looks so nervous. The genuine conflict in his thoughts, his concern for both the stranger's feelings and my own, caught me off guard. He wasn't the arrogant jerk I'd always thought he was. Acting on an impulse I didn't fully understand, I cleared my throat loudly. I'll add you, I said, looking at the hopeful student. He doesn't have his phone with him. Asher's eyes widened in surprise, but he played along, giving the other guy a small, apologetic nod. The student, flustered but grateful, quickly scanned my code and scurried away. Triumphant, I slid my phone across the table to Asher. You owe me. Call me Dad. It was an old, stupid joke between us, a remnant of our childish one-upmanship. For years, we had competed over everything, our victories and defeats measured in playground taunts and sarcastic remarks. But this time, it felt different. It felt like I was claiming something. Asher let out a low, husky laugh that sent a shiver down my spine. Thanks, Kai. Dinner's on me. But his thoughts sang a different, far more intimate tune. Dad? He's being so childish. It's exactly like when we were kids, so possessive and cute. God, I love it. A blush crept up my neck, and I quickly pushed the phone back toward him. Just deal with it. He took his time, his long fingers tapping out a message before handing it back. I glanced at the screen. He hadn't accepted the friend request. Instead, in the chat box, he'd written a gentle, polite refusal. Hey, sorry about that. There were a lot of people, and I didn't want to embarrass you by saying no. I appreciate you thinking I'm worth your time. It was a remarkably kind and mature response, a stark contrast to the sarcastic, competitive boy I'd grown up fighting with. Everyone always described Asher as charming, polite, and responsible, but the version I saw was always arrogant and goading. For the first time, I realized the face he showed me was reserved for me alone, a special kind of antagonism that was, perhaps, its own twisted form of intimacy. As we left the canteen, the campus was bathed in the soft, hazy glow of twilight. We walked in a tense, but not entirely uncomfortable silence until Asher made an abrupt detour towards the convenience store. He emerged a moment later with 2 ice cream bars. He unwrapped one and handed it to me. Here, he said, his tone deliberately nonchalant. Strawberry. I know it's your least favorite, but it was the last one. My favorite flavor was, and always had been, strawberry. I'd always been too self-conscious to buy it around him, afraid he'd mock me for liking something so stereotypically sweet. He was doing this on purpose, the jerk. You knew I wouldn't like this, I accused, pointing at the chocolate bar still in his hand. Give me that one. He just smirked, quickly tore open the wrapper, and took a large, deliberate bite, his eyes sparkling with mischief. Too late. This one's mine now. I glared at him, my frustration mounting, but just as I was about to throw the strawberry bar in the trash, his thoughts, soft and triumphant, floated into my mind. He's so adorably stubborn. If I'd just handed him the strawberry, his pride would never have let him accept it. This way, he has to eat it. And he looks so cute when he pouts. My breath caught in my throat. He knew. All this time, he'd known my secret, stupid favorite flavor, and had orchestrated this entire charade just so I would eat it. The realization sent a dizzying mix of anger and something else, something warm and fluttery, through my veins. I stared at the pink ice cream in my hand, then back at his smug face, and the sheer absurdity of it all was too much. You're an absolute menace, Asher Vance, I grumbled, but there was no heat in my words. I took a bite, and the sweet, familiar taste felt like a confession. Is it that bad? He teased, his voice laced with laughter. Let me have a taste. He leaned in, and I instinctively kicked his shin, more out of reflex than genuine anger. Get lost. He yelped and jumped back, laughing freely as he dodged another half-hearted kick. He started jogging backward, his silhouette framed against the setting sun, his eyes bright and full of a youthful energy that was infectious. Watching him like that, so carefree and genuinely happy, I understood for the first time why so many people on campus were drawn to him. Stripped of our rivalry, he was undeniably charismatic. Back in the dorm, the playful atmosphere evaporated. I took a quick shower and retreated to my bed, feigning exhaustion. A few minutes later, the bathroom door clicked shut as Asher went in for his turn. Lying there in the relative quiet of the room, I could hear the muffled sound of the water running. And then his thoughts came, louder and more vivid than ever before, as if the steam and privacy amplified them. I really wish I could be in there with him right now. Kai's skin looks so smooth. I wonder what it would feel like under my hands. My face, still damp from the shower, instantly grew hot again. My heart started pounding a frantic rhythm against my ribs. No, get a grip, Ash. You have to be patient. The internal self-scolding was even more shocking. You can't scare him off. He's a straight guy, for all you know. This has to be slow, like boiling a frog in warm water. Gentle. Take your time. My entire body went rigid. Boil the frog? He had a strategy. This wasn't just a fleeting crush, it was a calculated, long-term campaign of seduction. The sheer audacity of it left me breathless. I yanked the comforter over my head, plunging myself into darkness, as if the thin fabric could shield me from the intensity of his private world. But it was no use. His thoughts, a constant, intoxicating murmur, continued to seep through, and I realized with a terrifying certainty that I was the frog, and the water was already getting dangerously, irresistibly warm. Sleep was a restless, turbulent ocean, and I was adrift on a raft of Asher's making. I, who rarely dreamed, was plunged into a vivid, hyper-realistic fantasy that felt more like a memory than a fabrication of my subconscious. The star of this nocturnal production was, of course, Asher. Was this some psychic side effect of my new ability, his desires bleeding into my own dreams? In the surreal landscape of my mind, I was lying in my dorm bed, paralyzed, while Asher stood over me, his silhouette dark against the faint moonlight filtering through the window. "Can I just touch you for a second?" His dream voice whispered, a low, desperate plea that vibrated through my very core. I couldn't speak, could only stare up at him with wide, helpless eyes as he leaned down. His lips, soft and hesitant, brushed against my forehead. It wasn't a passionate kiss, but one of profound tenderness, a gesture so full of reverence and longing that it made my chest ache with an emotion I couldn't name. I woke up with a gasp, my body slick with a cold sweat. The dream had felt too real, the phantom touch of his lips lingering on my skin. My heart hammered against my ribs, a frantic, panicked beat. An erotic dream was one thing, but an erotic dream starring my lifelong nemesis? If Asher ever found out, he would lord it over me for the rest of eternity, his smug grin haunting me until my dying day. Humiliation propelled me out of bed. I crept to my closet, grabbing a fresh pair of boxers, and slipped into the bathroom, my movements silent and furtive. The cold shower I took was more for my mind than my body, an attempt to wash away the lingering images and the confusing, traitorous feelings they had stirred up. But when I returned to bed, sleep was a distant shore I couldn't reach. The room was quiet except for the soft, even breathing from the adjacent bunk, but my mind was a maelstrom. I found myself replaying our entire history, viewing it through this strange new lens. Asher and I were neighbors, our houses separated by a single, well-manicured lawn. Our parents were best friends, and they'd often joked about arranging a marriage if one of us had been a girl. Even as two boys, the teasing never stopped. I always reacted with loud, vehement denials, while Asher would just smile, a quiet, secretive expression on his face as he soaked up their words. Our childhood wasn't always antagonistic. Before the rivalry took root, we were inseparable. We were co-conspirators in skipping tutoring, teammates on the basketball court, partners in crime during summer adventures. The fracture happened in high school. It started with a girl, the first girl I ever crushed on. She was pretty, with pale skin and big, expressive eyes. I confided in Asher, my best friend, my other half. His reaction was not what I expected. A dark, possessive anger had flashed in his eyes before he stormed off. The very next day, he started pursuing her himself. I was blindsided, consumed by a feeling of betrayal so profound it felt like a physical blow. We had a brutal, screaming fight that ended with fists flying and brotherly bonds shattering. "I just like taking things that are yours," he'd sneered, his lips split and bleeding. At the time, I'd taken his words at face value. Now, I wondered. I thought back to the smaller things, how he'd always insist on sitting next to me in class, how he'd finish the food I left on my plate without a second thought, claiming he was just hungry. Was it possible that his feelings for me had been there all along, buried under layers of competition and pride? After our fight, the girl sent me a confession letter, but I couldn't bring myself to reply. Every time I saw her, all I could picture was Asher's bruised, defiant face. We became true enemies then, our shared history curdling into a bitter, silent war. Our parents' attempts to reconcile us were futile. We'd just glare at each other across dinner tables, the air crackling with unspoken resentment. Lying there in the pre-dawn stillness, I yearned to know what he was really thinking back then. The sky outside was just beginning to lighten from inky black to a soft, bruised purple. It was almost 6 a.m. 2 more hours of potential sleep before my godforsaken 8 a.m. class. Just as I was about to give up and stare at my phone, I heard a rustle from Asher's bed. We slept head to head, a compromise born of mutual stubbornness. Neither of us would accept the indignity of having our feet point toward the other's face. I held my breath, pretending to be asleep, my body rigid. He shifted, and I felt his presence leaning over me. "Kai," he whispered, his voice barely audible, thick with sleep. "My sweet little Kai." I remained perfectly still, my heart threatening to beat its way out of my chest. Then I felt it again. A soft, feather-light pressure on my lips. He had kissed me. It lasted only a second before he pulled back, settling back into his own bed with a quiet sigh. I lay there, every nerve ending screaming, not daring to move a muscle. I could hear his breathing even out, deepening into the steady rhythm of sleep. He had kissed me in my sleep and then just gone back to his. I buried my face in my pillow, a silent scream building in my throat. This boy was going to drive me absolutely, certifiably insane. My sanity was a frayed rope, and Asher was gleefully playing tug-of-war with it. Trapped in a state of hyper-awareness after his clandestine kiss, I gave up on sleep. I curled into a ball under my comforter, the screen of my phone providing a tiny pool of light in the dim room. My fingers, acting with a will of their own, typed a search query I never thought I'd contemplate: how to know if you're gay. The search led me down a rabbit hole of articles and forums, but nothing resonated. So, with a sense of grim determination, I decided to take a more direct approach. I found a gay adult film, my thumb hovering over the play button with a mixture of dread and morbid curiosity. I plugged in my earbuds, pulled the comforter tighter over my head to create a makeshift privacy tent, and hit play. The scene that unfolded was clinical. Two men, all muscles and stoic expressions, immediately began disrobing and kissing with a mechanical sort of passion. It did nothing for me. It felt detached, impersonal. I frowned, fast-forwarding a bit, but the explicit acts only made me feel more disconnected. Annoyed, I shut it off. The images on the screen had been meaningless, but my mind, that traitorous organ, immediately supplied a substitute: Asher. The thought of his lips, the memory of his scent, the sound of his secret thoughts, that was what made my pulse quicken. "What is wrong with you, Kai?" I groaned internally, burying my face in my hands. The morning alarm was a merciless shriek. I practically vaulted out of bed, desperate to put some distance between myself and the sleeping boy who was systematically dismantling my reality. I showered, dressed, and was out the door before anyone else was even stirring, grabbing a quick breakfast on my way to class. Usually, Asher and I had an unspoken truce in our academic lives. Despite our rivalry, we'd fall into a comfortable routine of walking to class together and bickering over lecture notes. But today, the thought of that easy proximity was unbearable. I found a seat in the back corner of the lecture hall, hoping to become invisible, and tried to focus on the professor's droning voice. I was deep in a spiral of self-analysis. Was I gay? Bi? Just Asher sexual? When a tall figure slid into the seat beside me. Of course, it was him. "Woke up on the wrong side of the bed, did we?" he murmured, placing a carton of soy milk on my desk. "It's rare to see you up before the last possible second." His presence was overwhelming, a magnetic force I couldn't ignore. "I don't need you to babysit me," I grumbled, but took the soy milk anyway. His thoughts immediately washed over me, a gentle, concerned hum beneath his teasing exterior. "What's with him this morning? He seems so tense. Did he have a bad dream?" His mood is foul, but he's still so damn cute when he's grumpy. The sheer, unadulterated affection in his thoughts was a physical blow. I nearly choked on my soy milk. Cute? No one had ever called me cute. I was the troublemaker, the rebellious one. Asher was the one who was universally adored, the perfect, exquisite little doll that every adult cooed over when we were kids. His perception of me was so fundamentally different from how the rest of the world saw me, and the dissonance was both jarring and deeply, secretly flattering. The 90-minute lecture felt like an eternity, with Asher's mental commentary providing a running, X-rated narration to our professor's lecture on microeconomics. By the time we were released, I was ready to scream. Back in the dorm, Leo was already in full gaming mode. Finally. You guys took forever. The new patch dropped, let's go, he yelled, not taking his eyes off his screen. Asher was quiet, but his mind was already strategizing. If Kai plays, I'll play. If he doesn't, I won't. I have to protect my boy. My boy. The casual possessiveness of the phrase sent another jolt through me. Leo looked at me expectantly, his eyes shining. Kai? You in? I hesitated for a second, then nodded. Gaming was a safe, structured form of interaction. Maybe it would feel normal. You and me, Kai, Asher said aloud, already logging in. I'll carry you. But Leo interjected, no way. I'm teaming up with Kai. You can teach Asher a lesson on what real power looks like. My treacherous heart sank a little. Fine, I said, trying to sound indifferent. Leo and I will crush you. Asher's shoulders slumped almost imperceptibly, but his thoughts were a mournful sigh. Why won't he team up with me? I'm really good. Fine. I'll just beat Leo into the ground until Kai sees who the superior choice is. I pressed my palm to my face, trying to cool my perpetually flushing cheeks. Since this whole telepathy thing started, my life had become a constant, simmering state of embarrassment. This was going to be a very, very long afternoon. The game loaded, and the digital battlefield became a proxy for the complex, unspoken war raging between the four of us. It was me and Leo against Asher and our fourth roommate, Evan. From the moment the match started, it was clear Asher was playing with a singular, vindictive purpose, to utterly annihilate Leo. He bypassed strategic objectives, ignored Evan's calls for backup, and hunted Leo with the relentless focus of a predator. Dude, what is your problem? Leo yelped, as Asher's character once again cornered him, unleashing a devastating combo that sent him back to the respawn point. I haven't even finished gearing up. I shot a look at Asher, who was leaning back in his chair with a wickedly satisfied smirk. Just suppressing your development, he said coolly. Standard strategy. While Leo was fuming, I found myself suddenly ambushed by Evan. My health bar plummeted. Just as I was about to retreat, Asher's character flashed across the screen, intercepting Evan with brutal efficiency. Your skills are garbage, Kai, he taunted aloud, his voice dripping with condescension. I told you to stick with me. Bet you regret it now. But his thoughts were a furious, protective roar. How dare he touch my Kai? I'll make him pay for that. He proceeded to obliterate Evan's character, then systematically dropped a pile of high-tier loot at my feet. The contrast was so stark it was almost comical. Asher, what the hell? Evan protested, his voice a mixture of confusion and annoyance. You're supposed to be on my team. You just let Kai take all the best gear. Asher just popped a lollipop into his mouth, the picture of nonchalance. Details, details. As long as we don't lose, it's fine. In the end, thanks to Asher's blatant favoritism, Leo and I managed to secure a messy, undeserved victory. Leo immediately threw his headset down in frustration. I'm out. I can't play with this level of bias. Kai, you're better off with him. At least then the teams will be fair. He stormed off to take a shower, muttering about injustice. The room fell into an awkward silence. It was almost lunchtime, and as if on cue, Asher's stomach rumbled. His thoughts immediately turned to food. Lunchtime. What would Kai want to eat? That new hot pot place by the West Gate is supposed to be amazing. He loves spicy food. He'd definitely love it. How do I get him to go with me? The earnest, almost boyish eagerness in his thoughts was endearing. I bit back a smile and stretched languidly in my chair. Man, I'm craving hot pot, I announced to the room. Anyone want to come with? Leo poked his head out of the bathroom, his hair dripping. Definitely not me, I can't handle spicy food. Evan shrugged from his desk. Just had it with my family this weekend. Leo grinned, a knowing, wicked glint in his eye. Well, I guess that just leaves your mortal enemy, Asher. Asher's internal voice was practically singing with joy. Yes, we're so in sync. He was thinking the exact same thing I was. It's like we're soulmates. The sheer, unadulterated happiness radiating from his mind was so potent, I had to physically turn away to hide my reddening face. I grabbed my keys, trying to sound casual. Let's go then. Evan watched us leave, a thoughtful expression on his face. All right, you two have fun. Oh, and on your way back, can you grab some cold noodles for Leo? Medium spicy. The casual request made me pause at the door. How did Evan know what Leo wanted? And how did Leo know Evan had just had hot pot? As we stepped out into the blazing midday sun, the pieces clicked into place with a sudden, startling clarity. The knowing looks, the easy banter, their oddly synchronized schedules. It wasn't just us. I was surrounded by secrets. The sun was blinding, forcing me to squint as we walked. I watched Asher, who was comfortably shaded by a baseball cap, with a pang of envy. A second later, he plucked the cap from his own head and settled it firmly on mine. "It's too hot," he said, his voice a low grumble. "Your face is already getting red." But his thoughts were a preening, self-congratulatory monologue. Hee, I'm so thoughtful. Kai is definitely going to fall for me now. He was just giving me the most seductive look. Was that a signal? Does he want me to kiss him right here? The audacity of it made me want to laugh and punch him at the same time. "You're insane, you know that?" I muttered, pulling the cap lower over my eyes. He just clapped me on the shoulder. "What was that?" "Hurry up, I'm starving." This was my life now, navigating a world where my sworn enemy was secretly my biggest admirer, and my best friends were apparently in a secret relationship that I was the last to know about. I was the oblivious fool in a romantic comedy I didn't even know I was starring in. The hot pot restaurant was an oasis of cool air and the tantalizing aroma of spices. We were seated in a secluded booth, and the moment the frigid air from the vent hit my sweat-dampened skin, I let out a sigh of relief. "Don't stand directly in the draft. You'll catch a cold," Asher chided, already pulling 2 bottles of soda from the restaurant's cooler and setting one in front of me. I tugged at the collar of my damp t-shirt, fanning myself, and took a long drink. The sweet, cold liquid was a balm to my overheated system, but Asher's reaction nearly made me spray it all over the table. Does he have any idea how seductive that is? Deliberately getting all sweaty right in front of me. And the way he drinks, letting it drip down his neck, his skin is so pale there. I just want to bite him. Mark him as mine. I choked, sputtering and coughing as the soda went down the wrong way. "Careful," he said, sliding a napkin dispenser toward me, his face a mask of concern. "Are you okay?" "How am I okay when you're mentally undressing me over a bowl of soup?" I wanted to scream. I felt my entire body flush a shade of crimson, usually reserved for lobsters. He was turning me into a walking, talking blush. "I'm fine," I managed to rasp, hiding my face behind the menu. "You order. Just, don't look at me." He raised an eyebrow, but thankfully complied, taking a peppermint from a small tin in his pocket and popping it in his mouth before focusing on the menu. With his attention diverted, I allowed myself to really look at him. I had to admit, objectively, Asher Vance was ridiculously handsome. It was a fact I'd spent most of my life actively trying to ignore. He had sharp, intelligent eyes, framed by lashes so long I'd once, as a child, tried to pluck one to see if they were real. His features were a perfect, harmonious blend, with a high-bridged nose and lips that were sculpted with an artist's precision. I found myself wondering what they tasted like, besides the mint I could faintly smell. The dream kiss had felt so real, so right. My mind reeled. "Oh no. It's over for you, Kai. You're completely done for." Just as I was spiraling, he looked up, catching me staring. "Done?" he asked, handing the menu to the waiter. I scowled, flustered. "What do you mean, done? You didn't even let me order." He chuckled, a low, pleasant sound. "Relax. I ordered all your favorites." My face, which had just started to cool down, flared hot again. To cover my embarrassment, I snatched the menu back and quickly added 2 of Asher's favorite dishes before the waiter could leave. I didn't miss the way his eyes lit up. His thoughts were a triumphant shout. He ordered for me. He knows what I like. This is it. This is the beginning of our mutual affection. I'm so close to winning him over. I ducked my head, pretending to be engrossed in my soda, terrified he'd see the stupid, happy grin I couldn't quite suppress. The walk back to the dorm was a study in comfortable silence. At some point, Asher had produced a small, foldable umbrella, holding it over both our heads to shield us from the relentless sun. He angled it so I was fully in the shade, his own shoulder exposed to the heat. We stood so close our arms brushed with every step, and the clean, minty scent of him filled my senses. Back in the room, Evan and Leo were sitting suspiciously close on Leo's bed. They sprang apart the moment we walked in, their movements jerky and unnatural. I finally understood the strange tension I'd noticed before. "You too," I started, pointing a finger between them. Leo's face was bright red, a telltale sign of something more than just eating spicy snacks. "Leo, you liar. There's no smell of spicy chips in here at all," I exclaimed, putting the pieces together. "You were kissing." Evan burst out laughing, collapsing onto the desk, while Leo shot him a murderous glare. The voice in my head, Asher's voice, chuckled along. "My sweet, dense Kai. So adorable. They've been together for almost a month. And here I am, still stuck at the starting line. I really need to step up my game." I stared at my two friends, then at Asher, and the weight of it all finally hit me. I wasn't just the frog in the warm water. I was the last person to realize there was a full-blown romance happening right under my nose. Feeling betrayed and utterly foolish, I stomped over to my bed and threw myself onto it, pulling the covers over my head. My nemesis was in love with me, my best friends were in a secret relationship, and I was the oblivious main character in a drama I never signed up for. And as I drifted off into a frustrated, dream-filled sleep, I had a sinking feeling that my life was never going to be simple again.